Okay, let's just fucking wing it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And welcome to the Bad Kitty Podcast.
We are so glad you decided to join us again. I am Jen,
And I'm Amy.
and we're your hosts of the Bad Kitty Podcast. We're calling today's episode Finding Joy When Joy Ain't There.
Part 2.
Why is it a part 2, Amykins?
We had one of the classic Bad Kitty Podcast incidents with the sound. And so Jen sat down on that lovely, beautiful podcast we created just yesterday, and it had no sound.
Yeah, we spent an hour or more creating wonderful content for you. This is the second time.
At least.
Yeah. So it's pretty discouraging, and we had lots of things to complain about for you, but we forgot what they are now. So apparently that podcast was so cathartic. We can't even remember what we were pissed off about yesterday. So we're going to come up with new things to be pissed off about today.
It really won't take long.
It won't take long. So we are going to talk to you about finding joy when joy ain't there, or alternate title, Finding Joy When There Ain't None.
No, some days there just isn't, and you have to get out on your bike and ride.
Some days you just have to do whatever it takes, man. So here's what you can expect from today's episode. We are going to talk about finding joy when there ain't none. And to do that, you have to manufacture your own joy. We're going to talk about how it's rough times, yo. And we're going to do a happy or chappy segment or 3. And we're also going to read chapter 3 from the book, Lessons from Cats for Surviving Fascism. And it's a good one. So spoiler alert, it's about knocking things off or knocking things over. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
I'm going to knock a few things over.
Amy is going to do live action demonstration. So make sure you get the entire
and the video portion of
experience. Yes, we appreciate that. So if you're watching on video, yay, welcome. See my shirt. I'm wearing a Left Banks book shirt. It's got a little bit of pride in the back. Amy's wearing a y'all means all shirt.
Is that an arch?
That is an arch.
I was going to wear my Pride St. Louis arch shirt that we just bought.
Yes.
That Pride
I
St.
was
Louis.
too. Yep. The reason I wore this one is because I wanted it to match my black shoes. That's it. That's the reason.
Black soul.
Yeah, my black soul. I do. Man, I wish I had a black soul, like, African-American soul, but I'm as white as they come. But anyway, yeah, I'm wearing my St. Louis, Missouri Left Bank book shirt. Support independent bookstores. Left Bank Books in St. Louis is just fantastic. It's a bastion of progressive literature. So that's what we have in store for you today. And who knows what else will come up. I mean, we pretty much worked through this one in yesterday's therapy session. So we'll just see if this one's any good. So anyway, Amy, let's start with our
therapy session.
It was a therapy session for me, as usual. Amy.
Yes.
Are you happy or chappy today?
Today I'm happy. I was chappy yesterday and happy, and I can't remember what I was chappy about. So I guess that's therapy.
It's therapy for you too.
But today I'm happy again. One of the main things is, and it was a surprise yesterday for Jen, but today it's not a surprise, but you can reenact
I can
it.
pretend. Tell me, what are you happy about?
Vivi got a call and now has a new job.
Yay! Woo, Vivi!
Awesome. So, Vivi will be working at a local arts and crafts store in a frame shop. So we're very, very excited for her. This is going to be a great opportunity. She'll be working indoors as opposed to the garden center. So that's always good. And learning a skill, which was valuable, and how to make mats and do all that good stuff.
Yes.
And she has an art background. So this is very right up her alley.
This is so great.
Service, small little area.
So great. She has such a wonderful, vibrant personality. Yeah. And, I used to go through the garden center entrance at Lowe's just to get to say hi to Vivi. And, I spend a lot of time at Michael's because I'm an artist. So #artist. And so anyway, I'm really excited about it. Congratulations, Vivi. We're so excited for you. And this is just a reminder to everybody out there. Getting fired is a life experience, and not everybody gets to have that experience, but I did, and I'm glad I had it. And this just shows you that when one door closes, there's another opportunity waiting for you. And you also can't wait for it. You got to go make it for yourself. And that's what Vivi did.
Yeah, we're just really excited that she did. She has the personality for customer service and is just, really a vibrant, bubbly girl. So we're excited for her.
Yay. That's a great happy.
Yeah. Thank you. I worked hard.
I am, let's see, am I happy or chappy? Well, I woke up in a good mood. And so then I'm happy for that. And I, was practicing my little red lipstick. But overall, I'm chappy about transphobia.
Yes, indeedy. Me too, but I can understand why you might be in particular.
Yeah, I had an experience where Someone expected some right to comfort, to not have to basically see a trans person. And it's a little bit more, specific than that. But basically, they didn't think that they or their children should have to see a trans person. And I had to decide how to manage that because it's a sticky situation that's actually,
Pretty upsetting.
pretty upsetting. And so what I did though in handling that, I'm pretty chappy about it and I want to go the hell off. And anybody who knows me knows that I sure can go the hell off. I should have worn my shirt today that says I could be meaner. I think that I'd like to get rid of the C and put it in SH. I should be meaner. But I'm actually wise and I'm too wise to fall for that crap. And so what I decided to do was nothing. Decided to take this information under advisement and allow it to inform my future interactions.
Sure, because then you see the person for who they really are.
Yep. And I won't be changing anything that I do in my life based on this transphobic comment or concern that was brought to me. But it took a couple days to get there.
Yeah, and a lot of talking through and what options
Right,
were
because there
available.
there was the option to address it with the person who said it, to address it with the person, who was in question, to address it with the kids who, may or may not have said they were bothered by it, but I've just decided to let it be because there's nothing that needs to be changed here, and that's hard because that just means I have to just process it. I don't get to offload my feelings by losing my temper and telling someone what I think of them.
Or even just having a conversation, you don't have
No.
to lose your temper because this particular topic is something that can be discussed. It's the what we're worried about, which we came to the conclusion is what the result would be upon discussing this topic, and is it worth what could happen?
Yeah,
And
and
it wasn't on both ends.
and you know, in this particular situation, no action is required.
Right. It would just be upsetting to the person that this is about, and the person that it came from could hold retaliation, and then the children could just be,
Caught in the middle.
well, yeah, a mess.
Yep.
So it's just not worth it this
It's
time.
just so tricky, isn't it? Where you're trying to balance protection of your own child and concern for other kids
Right.
and then
And you're not
awareness.
even including your own self.
Right. Certainly, I would never have gone and given somebody a piece of my mind in this situation
Mhm.
because it is more delicate than that. But but it hurt my
It
feelings.
does. It's very chappy, and
It is very chappy, and that's what
that's
happened
what we
here.
did.
Yep.
Yeah. We talked it through, even on our lovely post podcast bike ride.
And that's what we want to talk to you about. So, when times are hard and you're feeling pretty chappy, you might have to manufacture your own joy.
And so yesterday was manufacturing. And, we may not have to manufacture today because we're feeling much better, but we can talk about how we did it.
Yes. Yesterday, after the podcast, Amy planned an electric bike ride for us, and we got to be in nature. And even better, Amy has these helmets that are like walkie talkies. You can communicate with each other. So the whole time we were on a bike ride, we were talking to each other through our helmets, and it was just wonderful.
It was more therapy.
It was more therapy, it was more joy, and then we went and had coffee and a treat, and we rode back, and so we had a really good but we had a really good conversation about challenging topics, and that was very helpful, and then we went out and got into nature and manufactured joy, and it was real. So, sometimes people say, "Well, if I have to manufacture it, is it authentic?" Your brain doesn't know the difference.
Yeah. Because you're out there having, a good time,
Yeah.
forced or whatever.
Yeah. Like, there's this therapy thing where you speak to the empty chair, and that person who's sitting in the chair, you can visualize it as you, your younger self, or a parent, or a partner, or a child, or anybody. And your brain doesn't know the difference. Like, that's why they tell you to write a letter to your abuser. Your brain doesn't know the difference. You're getting those words out. And so,
Sure.
manufacture joy. And that's going to be a skill that could be life saving.
Yeah. I would say over the next, 2 years, but it looks like we'll need it longer.
Yep. So, manufacturing joy from what I've read in lots and lots of books about people who have survived difficult situations, whether that be being stranded at sea or being in a concentration camp or being in an abusive situation, it was their ability to have some hope, their ability to stay grounded in where they're at, but also to manufacture joy, whether that be remembering happier times or a book that I just finished reading was about these people were stranded at sea after some military things, and they went over recipes for the favorite meals that their mother cooked. And yeah, maybe you would talk about your wedding day. And I mean every single detail from the start to the
Where they
finish.
happiness and whatever brought them joy when they were,
That's
not
right.
stranded at sea.
Right. And your brain doesn't know the difference. Like the stories that we tell and retell ourselves are the content that your brain is consuming. And so if you laid down and were going to sleep and thought about your wedding day from start to finish, or the adoption day, or the birthday, or whatever it is, something that is a true joyful memory, and you play that through and think about that, that's your brain remembering that joyful time. And so manufacture your own joy because, man, it is rough times, yo.
Yeah, and I want to give credit to Matt because for some reason I think he said that.
Matt said, manufacture your own joy. When we were preparing for this podcast yesterday, we were talking about finding joy when there ain't none. And Matt said, manufacture your own joy. And that's exactly right. Yep. You have to create the joy you want to feel. And so we did that yesterday with a really good bike ride and spending time talking. And Amy insisted on getting a treat and sitting outside because she heard me say I really wanted to do that before. And so, and we can manufacture joy for each other.
Yep. All the time.
Today, I called my baby sister and said, "How you doing?" And, she's got to replace her sink. Who in the hell replaces their own sink?
I don't.
Well, people who have, restricted budgets, they replace their own sinks. And my sister is working on this. Well, she has a gaggle of little boys, and she's like, I just don't want them to have to be home while I'm doing this because I know it's going to be hard for me. I don't need help. I just want my boys to have something else to do. They need to get out of the house. So I reached out to Grayson, my kiddo, who also wanted to have something to do today. And now suddenly they're getting together and they're going to go manufacture some joy. They're going to go find something to do.
So Grayson is taking the kids.
Cindy doesn't want any help. She just wants the kids not to have to be there while she's doing a very difficult task.
That's very kind.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. She said that she gets testy. She expects them to be able to help her, and they're just kids, and so they can't. And then she knows that she gets testy. She doesn't want them to experience that. And that's another way to manufacture joy, like send the kids off
They can
and
go find some joy.
yes, and take care of yourself. So manufacturing joy because we are all going through rough times, whether that is in the personal situation that I'm dealing with again, my sister and her situation with her sink, Vivian and her situation with her job. Grayson's expressed a little bit of loneliness lately about just wanting to connect with people. And I know many people.
Right. And we're helping with that.
We're helping with that.
Mhm.
We are manufacturing joy. And so what we want our podcast listeners to know is that we struggle with everything that's going on every day. And so we manufacture joy and we hope you do too.
Yeah, and I'm going to take it a step further because I just got these new stickers for my car that's got a smiley face with the semicolon in there.
Mhm.
And that is that's a suicide prevention thing. It means wait, there's more to come. And the sticker says stay another day. And so I saw that and it spoke to me because my little brother passed away from taking his own life. And if I could get back and tell him, manufacture some joy right now. Because the last time I spoke to him, he was very upset. And had I known what was coming, I'd have drove all night to get him. But nonetheless, stay another day, manufacture some joy, and, just keep on keeping on.
And your little brother was like one of your sons.
Yeah, he was our fourth son we never wanted. We like to tell him.
Mm,
We did want him, but we just gave him a hard time. He lived with us many years. So we'll have a whole show on that someday. But
someday.
yeah, when you were bringing it home about, persevering, and Kevin persevered a lot until he couldn't anymore. So, but God has sent me. I know my pal is not a God believer per se, but I still have my beliefs. So he sent me someone that brings joy in my life, and his name is also Kevin.
So I do believe in the universe, which is another name for a God. I don't believe in a gender binaried God.
Sure.
I reject the word he when used about God because how could God be he?
He probably doesn't have a gender. I mean, why
God,
would God have a gender?
right. God is the great I am.
Mhm.
And we, as people with little bitty brains, don't understand that. And so we gender. But I resist that. But I need to tell you all, I've been abused by men over and over
Sure.
and
So it
over.
would be hard to accept all knowing being in a male form.
Sure. It's also very patriarchal to believe that the creator of the universe is male. It just doesn't seem logical. But I admit,
I
um,
could say maybe they.
yeah, yes, friend, you say they about people's dogs.
I do. I
Be-
do.
Amy loves to be
Not
inclusive
they.
and not gender dogs because who gives a shit if the dog
Yeah, they're fairly neutral anyway.
and what difference does it make? But I suggest they to God. I say the universe because it prevents me from ever saying he in relationship to God, but we're talking about the same entity.
Sure. Yeah, and I do feel that my friend Starla, whose cousin this is, and introduced me to her cousin Kevin was, this was all put in place for me to meet Kevin at the ballpark that day. And now he is very special to me and just brings me a little bit of, you might say, manufactured joy, but also true joy because he reminds me so much of my Kevin.
So, Amykins, to make
Mhm.
sure that your audience knows what you're talking about, you had a little brother and was much younger than you and he came to live with you as a fourth son and he grew up and he took his own life and then you met your friend Starla's cousin whose name is also Kevin and he very much reminds you of your beloved brother Kevin and that new Kevin has really gone out of his way to bring you joy.
Right. He did not find me as crazy as I found myself when I explained to him that this is going to sound weird. It was within the first minute that I met him. I said, but you look like my little brother, exactly like him. You sound like him, and you're short like him. And he was so excited. And I said, my little brother passed away. I said, but just, seeing you brings that to me. And he has a lot of personality like my little brother did. And so he's embraced it. He didn't find me to be the nut job that I probably am and so now we call each other new little bro and new big sis.
And
And
that's beautiful, Amy.
it's a great fill-in for what I needed. I met him, let's see, 3 years ago, and it's filled in a gap. It hasn't filled in the whole hole because that's a big space to fill in. But he's really he's very special and just makes me and Matt and when my kids saw Kevin, they were like, "This is really creepy, mom. This is weird that he looks so much and sounds so much." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. It's a little gift.
The creator of the universe
Sent me a gift."
sent you a gift, and I
Mhm.
totally believe in that. I believe that we get the energy back that we put out, and you certainly put out love and expansiveness and
Yeah.
delight, and that's what you
He
got
and
back.
he totally gets me. He just really enjoys my company and Matt's company and the kids, and so it's a lot like having our little bro in our house sometimes. So
And being able to expand your heart after losing someone to suicide, to depression is hard and huge, and so good job for doing that. And anyone out there who has lost someone to depression or from taking their own lives, we are very sorry that you experienced that loss, and we do understand it. I lost a friend, a new friend, very unexpectedly to suicide, and, it's rough times, yo, and if I can tell you that I read a book called 72-Hour Hold. It was a first-person account of a mom of a child with mental illness, and after, like, all these years of fighting and fighting and fighting, the mom finally said, "I understand, you're tired." And so the thing about depression is that it doesn't actually kill you like, say, cancer kills you or something else, and so people just suffer, and medications that we offer them just don't really help, and the trauma we all have changes how our brains process information, and, it's a tragedy. I also suggest that if at all possible, you realize that it's also the greatest act of agency, I think,
sure, it did release him from all the struggles, and I know he was struggling, so
and I don't want any of you to take that path. Please reach out to us, leave a comment on this. 988 is a mental health hotline.
and reach out to someone close to you, and if you can't call 988, they can help you get
Yeah.
that step done. There's if you just reach out to one person, it could be life-changing.
It could be. Someone reached out to me the other night and said, something big and huge and awful had happened in their life and they were not feeling so good. And we talked it through. And I specifically asked if they were a threat to themselves or someone
Right,
else. And
and that's part of what I have learned from a thing called QPR training.
QPR.
Yeah, question, persuade, refer is you have to ask the direct question. Are you thinking of hurting yourself? You have to ask that direct question. You're not putting that in their head.
No,
They already would have that thought.
right.
You're letting them know that you will go to the ends of the earth to make sure they don't hurt themselves. And I did not know that training when I spoke to my brother last, who did take his life 4 days later. I did not know that. And I would have said, Kevin, are you going to hurt yourself? I will give you an airline ticket, or I will drive tonight to get you. I would have. And I'm sure he knew. I think he had called people and he had talked to people the night of. He didn't call me because he knew I would come get him, and he probably didn't wanna put that on me, and, QPR training says ask. Ask the direct, "Are you going to do something to hurt yourself?"
Mental health first aid training is available in Madison County, Illinois, and that is also another way to get some training around this. But the thing is, people are always thinking about what they're thinking about. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is you aren't the reason someone decides to take their life or decides to stay, but you can be the path they take to deciding.
Right, the catalyst
You can. But
to
I think
stay.
it's important to say that no one says words that causes someone to take their life. Now, I understand some people do this in a fit of anger or rage, but again, you're still not responsible for them going
Right.
and you're not responsible for them staying. But if you have training that can help, then you might know the things to say to get them to someone who can help them stay.
Well, when I was in Colorado, maybe that time that I met Kevin 3 years ago, I'm looking for fun things to do, and so I do a little Google search and QPR training came up. Well, there's a fun thing to do, right? So I went to that. I think I was on my own, and I just went to that training and did it. It was free, and I thought, I love this. I'm gonna bring this back to PFLAG, and we're gonna host a QPR training before the holidays, and that's what we did because holiday season, is the worst, and that was when Kevin took his life, was during
Question,
persuade
persuade,
and refer.
refer. If you or anyone you know is having thoughts of suicide, please reach out for help. 988, phone a friend, comment to us, and we do care about you. And we also know that rough times, and our government is making it harder for people to survive. And so you're not alone in feeling this desperation. So yeah, rough times, yo. So I want to talk about something. I want to talk about how things are in our country for Black Americans.
Because it's really rough time for them.
It always has been,
Yeah.
right? And now we're seeing an exacerbation of this violence. So, white Americans, it is without a doubt imperative that we understand white supremacy and the impact it has on everyone, including white people. If you cannot find it compelling enough to speak out and change things and have conversations that are difficult to benefit Black people in America, then perhaps you might do it to benefit yourself. White supremacy is killing you. White supremacy is robbing your joy. White supremacy is keeping you from being your full self. And it's because white supremacy has tenets of expectations around comfort and propriety. It's the puritanical views that bring us to judgment of self and others. Please wake up and realize that we are living in the American caste system, where white men are on the top, all other men are next, except Black men who are at the bottom. That's the men structure. It's white men at the top, all other men, Black men. White women come next, all other women, Black women. The pressure of the entire caste system of America rests on Black women. We must understand what white supremacy does to us as individuals. It harms us on the inside of our bodies. It harms us from a generational trauma perspective. It harms us from limiting us from having freedom, personal freedom. That white supremacy then is spewed out onto Black people and other people of color in this country. And we just saw another Black person be killed or die because he was in an unsafe situation with white people. And this happens all over the place. And if you say, we don't know what the details are, I don't want to hear it. We know what the details are in many other situations. We know what the details were in Trayvon Martin's situation. We've heard the audio recording. We know. We know that Black people do not hang themselves in public. There is no way Black people are hanging themselves from trees. That is lynching. It's happening again in our
That's
country.
the last thing they would do.
There's
Literally.
no way that Black people are hanging themselves from trees. That is absolutely state sanctioned violence. Police are involved in that, and they always have been. We've never really gotten away from enslaving Black people. The Emancipation Proclamation just made it to where only enslaved people could be forced to labor. So they created a system to move more Black people, especially Black men, into prison. They created the prison system and a pipeline from one institution, which is the K through 12 school system, into another institution, which is the prison system. And the prison system is now commercialized, and schooling is as well with magnet schools. So they made it a profit focused industry. And if you know anything about profit focused industries, all they care about is profit, which means they cut costs any way they can, which means food quality reduces, healthcare reduces, cells are overcrowded, staffing is reduced, and then those people are stressed, and then they take out their stress because they're living paycheck to paycheck on the people who are incarcerated. And that system then sells the labor to industry, and industry pays pennies on the hour for that labor. And so America never ended slavery. We just transferred it. And it's a big joke to think that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Abraham Lincoln ended the war. And then they just moved into enslavement in a different way. And I can't personally change this, but I can talk about it. White people must be talking to each other every time they have a chance about white supremacy and what it does to everyone. We are at the end of the American empire. It lasted 250 years and it's ending. What comes next is up to us. If it happens too quickly, it is most likely happening by violence. And even if you have the left, which is the side I am on, overthrow the government through violence, you then end up in tyranny. You can't have a violent overthrow, according to world history, a violent overthrow that then ends in democracy and freedom for everyone. So we don't want someone to go in and forcefully overtake this government, even if it is my side, because I know that will lead to oppression as well. We need systemic change. And the way that happens is for people to change their beliefs and understandings. You have to change what you believe about your own identity, your own country, understand the caste system in this country. We cheered when apartheid ended in South Africa. What? There's apartheid here. People have different rights here. And you may say that's not true, the Bill of Rights, et cetera, but that has never been extended to all people. And we know that. And, you can look at other countries right now that have apartheid. And I know that there are atrocities happening everywhere. This is where I live. And I know that there are stereotypes we could talk about different cultures. This is my culture. I am a part of the white collective, specifically the white woman collective, specifically the over 50 white woman collective. I'm speaking to my people. People say, whenever I talk about white men, they say, oh, I guess you haven't been around men of other races. I'm talking about my collective. I don't need to talk about men of other races. I'm going to talk about the men in my collective. So if you want to know where to start with the movie Origins. Origins is the movie. Isabel Wilkerson is the main character that the movie is about. It is a great movie to start with, and it's based on a book called Caste: The Origins of Our Discontents. It's a very thick book. If you like to read, you'll love it, but the movie is excellent. Another book you can look at is called Waking Up White, and it is a book by a white woman who begins to recognize her privilege of being white, which just means she doesn't have to overcome her skin color. She also had the advantage of being wealthy. And as she began to wake up to her whiteness, she realized that deconstructing would set her free. That's an excellent book. But I do implore you to read books by Black people. Ta-Nehisi Coates has a book called Between the World and Me, and it tells you such a beautiful story of the relationship between a Black man and his city and country and culture. But please educate yourselves. And if you say something like, well, my issue is homelessness, or my issue is trans rights, or my issue is women's rights, or my issue is disability rights, or my issue is children's rights, all of those things affect Black people.
You can bring the Black aspect into that and work with that.
If you understand this concept, then you can go study the foundation. We must liberate the Black trans disabled child. Black trans disabled child. When we liberate the Black trans disabled child, we will have liberated the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because the least of these.
Yes. That's right. So we are supposed to be serving the least of these. They will know that you are my follower by what you have done for the least of these. That's what this means. When I have heard people say, I can't even think about Black American rights, I'm worried about my trans child. Yeah. Well, Black people have trans children. And so we must do the work of liberation for everyone. It doesn't matter what your favorite issue is. Black people experience all of those issues. And remember that hierarchy. In the hierarchy of men, Black men are on the bottom. So all of that weight of the men group falls on Black men. And then white women come in next, all other women of color, Black women at the bottom. And so with all of that pressure, you have to understand that they're dealing with, the most. And then when you look at their culture and have complaints about things or the ways that things are different than your particular culture, perhaps you could consider the societal pressure of, being at the bottom of the respective caste system. So I call bullshit. My family lived in East St. Louis in that housing that was created right after World War II. And they were a part of the wave that was pushed out. I have white family. They were pushed out of this communal post-war housing. People were living together in harmony, and the government could not allow that because the government knows that when the people live and play and work together in harmony, then we have the power. We have the power, and the government doesn't want the people to have the
Which is
power.
funny because in the Constitution says people have the
And that is what the framers intended, was for the people to have the power. And very, very clearly it says when the government stops doing what the government is supposed to do, we are supposed to overthrow the government. It's in our founding documents. That's what we're supposed to be
it
doing right now.
started on
So my family was pushed out of East St. Louis when the government said, we can't have all you people getting along. And Black families were allowed to stay in East St. Louis, but then they were stacked. They had 2 or more families living in each unit. And you have adults sleeping with children and all of the harm that comes from that. And so Black people were compressed into East St. Louis with limited resources, and no money was spent in the community to improve it by government. Later on, philanthropists came, Jackie Joyner Kersee came and put money into the community. And you might say, well, it doesn't matter what you do down there. There's nothing that can be done. That's what I grew up hearing. But that's not true, because everywhere people want opportunity. They want fresh food. They want opportunity to be educated and to, go out and have a future. And so when our government decided that people could not stay and live together in harmony and pushed those people out, many of those families had nowhere to go and no money, because that was government housing for people after World War II. And so my family was very poor. They had nowhere to go. And so they went and lived in, makeshift quarters. From what I understand, the limited amount I was told, it was a refurbished chicken coop in someone's property. And so the racist tropes that my family had believed since being sharecroppers, sharecroppers who are white are told, well, at least you're not Black. Okay. So my family, who has that in their DNA, moved up here to find work after World War II. They get this housing, they get moved out, they have to go find someplace else to live. Now they're living in a refurbished chicken coop while Black people still get to live in the nice housing in East St. Louis. So there's racism there.
yeah, they just wanted the separation.
Yep.
They were like, that's the apartheid.
Yep.
So
They want the separation, and they also want anger about it. They don't just want you to be separate. They want you to be mad at the people who got to stay. But the people who got to stay were compressed, and then they were disenfranchised because they don't have places to get fresh food. They don't have opportunity to get educated and to grow. And their school system is crumbling and failing. And you may point to the Black community to say that that is their issue. The thing is, every time the Black community builds something of value, the white mobs come and burn it down.
several incidents of that.
Right. So in Tulsa, they built the Black Wall Street and it was burned down. We've had white mobs committing violence against Black people over and over again. There's the East St. Louis riot of 1917. And, I've heard tell in my family that my grandma's dad, so my great grandfather, whom I never met, witnessed someone throwing a Black baby off the Eads Bridge. That is family lore. He would have been young. My grandma was born in 1927 and this was in 1917. So 10 years before she was born, he could have been like 15.
So this was a Black person or a white person?
My grandma's dad is a white person.
Right, but they witnessed a white person throwing
Sure.
a
Yeah.
oh,
It was the riot East St. Louis riot of 1917. And my aunt told me within the last 2 years that her grandpa told her that he saw a person throw a black baby off the Eads Bridge during that riot. And so this is my family history. I have racist relatives right now who are digging in. And I don't have that. That is not in my DNA, or I have fought to overcome it. But I have always questioned why? What? Why? Why do we expect Black people to behave according to white culture? Why do we expect Black people at gas stations in Black communities not to be loud when in their culture they're loud? Why do we expect Black people not to laugh loudly when in their culture they're bold in the way that they laugh? Now, not all Black people, because they're not a monolith, but those are some stereotypes that we hear. As white people, we're uncomfortable with the loudness, we're uncomfortable with, certain things. Well, that's their culture and this is their country, and you don't have to go. But you don't get to say my discomfort trumps your freedom. The right to comfort is one of the tenets of white supremacy, and it's just so corrosive.
Yeah. And then you see pictures nowadays of, at the 250-year celebration with the Patriot. I don't know their new name. Used to be more Proud Boys, but they were Patriot somethings.
Right,
And they're wearing their white face coverings because they're so brave
right.
and carrying their flags, just hundreds of them. And then they all hop on the subway and intimidate the Black people on the subway, which was horrifying.
And now apparently they're trying to dox this woman. We've all seen that picture and bring up some things about her past when she was
She
just
was
riding a
just
freaking subway.
she had nothing to do with that.
The president is a pedophile and a rapist who has been ordered to pay someone $5 million, who the Supreme Court decided not to protect the president. And this person is going to get her background exposed for being
Yes.
on a subway.
It's like the election. Remember
Yeah.
Ruby in Georgia? That just because they're working an election and they doxed them
Yeah.
and they had horrifying events happen to them.
Right. Right. So we
So
are not going to be able to solve these problems with elections. We're not going to be able to solve these problems through politicians. We are only going to be able to make any type of progress on these problems by coming together. And to come together, we only need to focus on ourselves and understand what we are doing to contribute to the perpetuation of white supremacy. We need reparations, and I don't want to hear about how we can't afford it, because we can afford to bomb the world. And we need to pay people for stolen labor. We need to make it fair and even. We need to put women in charge to lead. And man, it is rough times, yo. And we are going to go manufacture joy today by meeting up with a friend for lunch. They asked me to come and do a little financial coaching. And I said, yes, but can I bring my Amy? Because she softens me. I'm very direct and she's very
just
gentle.
take info and I'm like, well, what she's and then we get to have lunch. So yay.
And then we
It's
get
a
to have
win.
lunch, and we're
It's a
going to go
win.
to the beer
Old Bakery Beer
company. I
something.
can't ever get that name right. Old Bakery Beer Company
Yeah.
in Alton, and they are a very inclusive space, and we love to support inclusive spaces. So, Amy, are you ready to read about cats?
Oh, I am.
Great.
Let's do it. I think
Okay.
this ended up being a timely message too.
I
A very
think
good. Oh, they all are.
I think that they all are. All right, my friends. The time has come. I'll bet you put up with my rant about white supremacy so that you could get to the part where I read lessons from cats for surviving fascism. Well, you are
No,
in
you
luck,
did.
ladies, gentlemen, and friends, because it is time. Chapter 3, knock things over strategically. And there's a little illustration here of a cat on the side of a dining table with a white cloth that extends all the way to the floor. And the cat has knocked over a cup.
It is a skill.
It's a skill. All right, here we go. Cats are the original disruptors. They don't knock things over for fun. Well, okay, sometimes it's fun. They do it with purpose. A vase here, a mug there, and suddenly the entire room is on the table for being off the table. Cats know that the best way to confront authority isn't with blind rage, but with deliberate, calculated chaos. And that's exactly how we should handle fascism. Fascists love their symbols of power: flags, statues, endless banners with slogans that sound like they were written by a malfunctioning chatbot. They cling to these symbols because deep down, they're fragile little creatures who need constant reminders that they're in charge.
That's hysterical.
But here's the secret: those symbols aren't as untouchable as they want you to think. And cats have been proving that for centuries. One knocked off important receipt that you put on that shelf so you wouldn't forget it at a time. Imagine a fascist, proud of their perfectly arranged desk, every pen in its place, every paperclip accounted for. Now imagine a cat leaping onto that desk, locking eyes with them, and slowly, ever so deliberately, batting their favorite pen onto the floor. That's the energy you need to channel. You're not just knocking over objects, you're knocking over their illusion of control. And nothing annoys a fascist faster than the realization that they can't stop you. Fascists, for all their bluster, are remarkably bad at handling disruption. They thrive on order and predictability because their entire worldview is about forcing everyone to stay in their assigned seats. The moment you start toppling things, even metaphorical things, they're thrown into a tailspin. Wait, they'll sputter. You're not supposed to do that. The rules and my very specific version of God clearly state. But the rules were written by them, for them. And cats don't care about rules.
No, we don't.
Neither should you. The beauty of strategic chaos is that it doesn't have to be loud or destructive to be effective. Sometimes all it takes is a small, deliberate act, a sticker on a statue, a satirical meme, a perfectly timed sign of defiance. Like a cat swiping a glass of water off the counter, you're sending a message. This doesn't belong here, and neither do you. Fascists will try to frame disruption as unruly, uncivilized, or even dangerous. But let's be honest, they're just embarrassed that you outsmarted them. These are the same people who are probably surrounded by a bunch of people sucking up to them in the hope the power and wealth will rub off. They're not equipped to handle a population full of metaphorical cats who refuse to sit still and behave. So embrace the art of deliberate chaos. Find the symbols of their power, their monuments to mediocrity, their poorly worded propaganda, their deeply unflattering portraits, and give them a little nudge. You don't have to destroy everything. Just do enough to make them question whether they've actually got control. Because at the end of the day, nothing dismantles authoritarianism quite like a well-timed act of defiance. Be strategic, be bold, and when the time comes, knock it all over, one paw at a time.
Well said. Stuart Brittlestar Reynolds, and he has an Instagram page.
Yes, Grayson found this book at Left Bank Books and let us borrow it to read it to you so that you can learn how to be disruptive, because it is time for us to be doing acts of defiance.
That's right. And
Yep.
I think the defiance will be, we are keeping it because it belongs in the Bad Kitty Library.
That's our act of defiance. So
Yeah.
here are some examples of acts of defiance. Don't look men in the eye when you're passing them.
Yeah, I kind of stopped.
Step out of the way for Black women when they are approaching on the sidewalk. Give them the right of way. Yep. Don't expect people to move for your comfort. Don't expect people to do something so that you get to feel comfortable.
Sure.
You are responsible for your own experience.
And that applies in understanding. We can apply that to your situation. So don't expect people, because our comfort is one level, and this objective person is never going to come there.
And, if you're not comfortable, leave. You don't get to change everybody else's behavior because you're uncomfortable. Leave. And here's one for you. It's a little story. I was exiting an airplane, and I believe in order. There's a way to exit an airplane, and I hope you know it. It's one row at a time in turn. Occasionally, a flight attendant will say, "We have someone who needs to deplane. Will you please allow them to deplane?" And of course, I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is when somebody from the back tries to run to the front before anybody else gets up. And I've been known to take a stand. One time, I took a stand, and the person who did it was a Black woman. And I was wrong because I realized too late that she was the only Black woman in this area, and she was surrounded by white people. And I was to blame for that. And I am very sorry that I did it.
And that's a comfort level.
I will never do it again. I do think that we should deplane orderly, but who am I to police that? But I'm just going to tell you this. Even if I'm right, even if the Black woman is wrong, I will never again disagree in a public setting, especially and certainly if it's all white people. But I'm just going to say full stop. Black women have to handle too much for me to be another person that they have to deal with, even if I'm right, even if they're wrong.
They don't need another thing on top.
No,
Mhm.
and it will take practice because the thing I do first is what I have been taught. The thing
Mhm.
I do second is what I have learned. And so it isn't easy to all the time do what I have learned. And that's why I have to practice that sacred pause so that I have 3 seconds to center myself and choose what I'm going to do. And so that's one of the ways I'm going to do it.
Yes. I'm
Yep.
proud. Good job. And I intend to have more engaging conversations with Black people and, men and women, and leave myself open to more understanding.
Thank you for saying that. It's hard because many times we say the wrong thing, and that's what so many of us are afraid of. I don't want to say the
Right.
wrong thing, so I don't say anything, and
And
I
if
get it.
right, if you apologize for saying the wrong thing and move on, as we do with the trans
Right.
community, then that's accepted.
It's sort
So,
of the same thing as a man saying the wrong thing to me educating him and him
and
saying,
then
I'm sorry. It's
right,
like,
move on.
I want you to know that what you just said was sexist or misogynist,
Right.
and then they learn it and move
They
on.
take it and they hear it and then they move on. They don't, beat it to a pulp and argue with you.
The thing that you can do is
Mhm.
read and watch TV and watch shows. So go watch the movie Origins, please. Chelsea watched it and she said it was the greatest. And so go do it. But Amy, I'm freaking exhausted. I
Okay.
am so chappy. I
Well,
think we need to say our work here is done.
our work here is
Our
done. I
work
mean,
here is
look at
done.
us.
And I want to offer a sincere apology if this podcast was not what you're expecting. And I would like to send you a personal invitation to come back for the next one because chances are we'll be back to being joyful.
Yeah, we're working on it.
We really are. We're
It's
going to go
just a
manufacture
couple
some joy
choppy
and
times,
see what we can do.
and now we're good.
All right, Amy,
So
how are you doing? You think you're,
I think I can take on the world now.
yep, and
Mhm.
your work here is
Is done. My
Amy's
work here is done.
Amy's work here is done. That means we're done for the day. I'm done. I'm out of here. I can't do another goddamn thing.
Okay, and we are praying the prayers that this podcast comes through.
Hello, podcast
Okay.
gods. We offer you up as sacrifice this bad kitty. Not you, this.
No, I'm praying.
Amy's praying. I forgot. I
This
haven't been in church so long. I forgot that's what
bad,
it is.
well, in some churches.
All right, universe, we're praying that on this bad kitty's offering that this podcast recorded. So, Amy, your work here
Thank
is
you.
done.
It is. Let's get out of here. See you next time.